set. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning meeting for Tuesday, October 25th, 2022. If everyone could please rise, this is the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Do we have public notice or no? No public notice tonight, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so our first item on our agenda tonight is public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? Now would be the time. Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, I would like to call on Vice Chairman Foley regarding adding an item to the new business calendar.
After public participation, I'd like to add item number 4 under new business to discuss the quad board.
And we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Under discussion, this communication was sent to me from the town regarding the quad board. My understanding is they'd like to get this moving sooner rather than later, so it is something we'll talk about as item number 4 if approved. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, under new business, our first item is application 22-35P, Town of South Windsor, Pleasant Valley Elementary School. Do we have someone here or?
Thank you and good evening. Jim Barrett, Drummond Roseanne Anderson Architects, South Windsor. And this evening, the item that's in front of you is the proposed single classroom addition. It is on the northeast wing of the new Pleasant Valley School, which is currently under construction. It's indicated in the diagram above. It is the brown small cube to the end of that northeast or the upper right-hand corridor and wing of the building. It's approximately 1,300 square feet, and the accommodation does not adjust the parking in terms of having to remove any parking. A minor adjustment of moving the roadway to the north, but that entire roadway and parking area are able to stay intact as originally designed.
Does that complete your presentation?
That is what we're here to talk about this evening. I'm sorry? What is in front of you here is the proposed north elevation. The small canopy at the center of the north elevation is the entrance doors, and that corridor extends down that entire corridor space. To the right of it is the proposed addition. It does show a single or pair of windows in it for fenestration. The canopy had been previously proposed, and we were able to incorporate the new work within that original intent. We did have opportunity, as you're aware, to meet with the Architectural Design Review Committee and reviewed that with them as well. Directly below the north elevation is a plan of the area. The darker area, which is in the top left of this plan diagram, is the classroom configuration, toilet core, storage, and classroom, as is found in the other spaces throughout the wing.
Okay, does that complete your presentation?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll turn to our staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Leip.
Thank you. So this is a request for site plan modification to add 1,300 square foot classroom to the elementary school currently under construction at 591 Ellington Road in a rural residential zone. This is added at the northern entrance, being connected to the building through a new corridor at that location. Other site changes is a slight shift in the access drive to accommodate this sidewalk in the drop-off area. This new addition does increase the parking requirement by 5 spaces, bringing the total up to 414. With your previous approval, the commission did grant a waiver to the parking based on demonstration of some other parking opportunities presented. So with this request, we are increasing the waiver to a total of 11 spaces, additional 11 space waivers. I'm sorry, it's what they are requesting with this. All the aspects of the project do remain the same. This was reviewed by the design review on October 4th. This will match the existing construction and materials and there was discussion about whether or not a second floor could be accommodated at some later time. I think it was represented that that is something that's being considered in its construction. The committee looked favorably on it and forwarded a favorable recommendation to this committee. It appears all of their zoning requirements have been met. There are no engineering comments on the plan at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this time, commissioners, I'll open up the floor to questions, concerns, comments. Anybody have any? Commissioner Wagner? Oh. Okay. If there's no questions, comments, concerns, a motion would be in order. Commissioner Wagner?
I move we approve application 22-35P, Town of South Windsor, Pleasant Valley Elementary School addition. There are 10 standard conditions, number 1 through 10, and then condition 11. In accordance with section 6.4.9, the commission has granted a modification to the required 414 parking spaces based on the uses presented. The modification to the required number of parking spaces is based on the operational parking needs of the facility presented and the availability of temporary parking for special events. All previous approval conditions from July 27, 2021 remain in effect.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions, comments, concerns? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, our next item on our agenda, number 2, is Connecticut State CGS referral of the 8-24 temporary housing for the Parks and Rec Department at Old Orchard Hill School. Do we have somebody here representing this one? It's messed up. Yeah.
Good evening. So thank you for taking this under consideration. Basically,
Excuse me, if you could introduce yourself to the,
Michael Maniscalco, I'm the town manager here for the town of South Windsor.
thank you, Michael.
So basically, thank you for taking the time to take this request under consideration. I think as all of you are aware, we heard from the Board of Education that we needed to move our Parks and Recreation Department out of the Wapping School because they needed it. They needed the Wapping School back to meet some of their increased student population needs over at the high school. So through that process, the town council put together a resolution creating a facilities committee that evaluated and looked at different locations. That committee did make a recommendation to move Parks and Recreation to Old Orchard Hill temporarily for a number of reasons, but really at this point, it's kind of the only facility the town has that really meets the needs of the department from a size perspective and would allow us to continue our programs without having an impact on the rest of our residents. We are calling it a temporary move at this point because I think for all of you who remember moving into even Wapping, there's some additional things that would have to be done if we were to make this a permanent move. So that'll take some additional evaluation and really a lot of digging. There will be some efforts made just to move the department in as we speak at this point, but that's kind of the overall gist, and we wanted to bring that forward to all of you since it's a change of use consistent with Connecticut General Statutes 824.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
I really don't have anything at this point. Thank you. It's a public building, which, you know, we allow through special exception. It was approved as a school, so it's another municipal use.
Okay. Michael, is your microphone on there? Okay. Commissioner Dexter?
I'm just curious, did Board of Ed vote to deed over that building to the town?
Yeah, so the Board of Ed did pass a resolution giving the building over to the town. I think, as all of you remember, with the Wapping School, that was actually leased by the town from the Board of Ed, which found us in this situation where they could come back and ask for it back. This kind of learning from past mistakes, we said, you know, if we were to move forward with a school, we wanted the Board of Ed to actually give us the building so we could, if we are going to be putting some significant money into it and making improvements, that we're not going to find ourselves in a similar situation without some serious conversation
Yep,
first.
good to hear, okay.
Okay, Commissioner Wagner?
Yeah, so the word temporary, I think, carries a lot of weight here. If we were making that into a permanent facility, would we have more expenses associated with adapting the building to the new use?
Yeah, so the building, my understanding, if we were to move into it on a more permanent basis, probably one of the larger expenses is we would have to put fire suppression system in of some sort, probably sprinkler the building because the building's currently not sprinklered now. Additionally, there would have to be some pretty significant ADA upgrades that need to be made. We're trying to work around some of that with where we're putting different programs, and then we're putting in some temporary solutions for some of the other things that are there to try to work around some of it for the short-term period. But if we were to make a long-term commitment there, those are some of the larger things that are up front. There's also, you know, we do know that the building has asbestos in it, so we currently, if we are going to be doing any work where that stuff is, we're probably going to have to encapsulate it and really avoid disrupting any of it as best we can. If we were to do some of those more permanent fixes, we're going to probably find ourselves in some remediation efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Cavagnero?
Thank you. Two things. Going back on what Commissioner Wagner said in terms of a timeline is, how long are we expecting Parks and Rec to be using this facility?
So we work in municipal time, which is different than normal time. Yeah, sure, not a problem. So we're working in municipal time, not, regular time, so I have a feeling it's probably gonna be multiple years. I'm thinking we're on an order of magnitude of 5 years, maybe even more. But we'll have to see how things transpire, when we get in there, how that looks, how that works out. Also, I think, there's a lot of other moving variables that come into play. We did get some pricing related to what if we were to do something new. That pricing really wasn't 100% favorable for the community at this red hot moment, especially considering cost of construction, cost of financing, all those sorts of things. So we'd have to see what happens over the next few years with the market and all that other stuff.
Gotcha. And one last question. Since you mentioned it a minute or two ago, I figured I'd ask. Besides asbestos, is there anything else in the building that we should be aware of that'll impact anything that will be constructed in Orchard Hill?
So we are doing some lead abatement at this moment, because just even on the doors to get in, we found the lead paint on the doors. So we are doing lead abatement of some paint around the building. We've heard rumor about some mold issues, and there are some rooms that are a little musty, so we're trying to figure out that as well, but we're not 100% sure at this moment.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Foley?
Besides the facility, the structure itself, the land that abuts the property, is that also, is that conveyed to the town, or is that still part of BOE?
Yeah, so the Board of Ed only gave the town the building itself. So they did keep, and I think there's maybe 1 or 2 fields that they said could come along with it, but the majority of the field space around it is going to still be controlled by the Board of Ed. But as we do with almost all of our facilities in town, Park and Rec and Board of Ed work together very well in terms of scheduling and all that sort of stuff to make sure that everybody gets their fair chance at using those properties.
Commissioner Bernstein?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what % of the capacity of the facility will Parks and Rec take up? And is there anything else in there, or could there be anything else in there that you see on the horizon?
Yeah, so, we spend a lot of time focusing on Park and Rec being in the building. We also have our facilities department that's currently in Wapping. They're going to be moving into that building as well. We have heard from the Board of Ed that they wanted to use some space for storage. There was some temporary talk of putting some other program from the Board of Ed in there. That's kind of not worked out so far. I'm trying to think, do you know how much of the building you're going to use up at this point?
Excuse me, if you're going to speak, you have to come up to the microphone. And
My name
introduce
is Molly
yourself.
Keys, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Molly.
So we'll be pretty much utilizing all of the first floor and a few rooms on the second floor for storage. Building maintenance will be utilizing 4 or 5 classrooms on the first floor as well. So I want to say, at least 60% of the building will be utilized. We won't be doing the second floor really because it's not ADA compliant, so it's not fair to put some participants upstairs that won't be able to fully access the building.
Okay, thank you. If you could stay there for a minute. I'm just wondering, square footage-wise of the current area that the rec department is in versus like the Orchard Hill School, is there any
It's
numbers?
fairly comparable. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it is fairly comparable. We won't be losing any space in terms of camps or preschool, which is a positive aspect to it. We aren't really gaining space either, though, so it's going to be kind of a pretty comparable option.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner LeBlanc.
Yeah, it's a few questions then. Now, when you look at this building, I mean, it's dated, it's somewhat old. Do you see this building, could it be used as a permanent facility for Parks and Rec, or is that something that, do you feel it's obsolete and you want to move on from it at some point?
That's a really hard question to answer today, to be very honest. I mean, until we get in there and see what kind of stuff we're dealing with. at this point, the heating system in there is still oil, you know? I mean, we have to figure out what that's gonna be, and, it's really hard to discuss that at this red-hot moment.
Yeah,
I think
it's just-
we'd need to get in and, you know, unfortunately, like I said earlier, municipal time moves a lot slower than regular time, and, you know, with the timeline that we're faced with, we don't have a whole lot of choices. It would've been great to be able to sit back for a year or two and really evaluate and make the appropriate decision and move forward. We're kind of, you know, playing the hand that we've been dealt
Right,
in
right.
terms of that.
It seemed like Wapping wasn't a bad place for it, and it seemed like it was renovated, and it seemed like it suited the needs for Parks and Rec pretty well, but this building isn't that far off of it. I know it's a split level, and you have ADA requirements and things like that, but I wasn't sure if renovating this building was the right thing to do long-term, or is this something that we need to move on?
Yeah, you know, I think down that vein of thought at least, I would say that, you know, the school has been used as swing space for the school construction projects over that period of time, and there's been multiple schools in and out, in all honesty, and it's showing its age. You know,
Okay.
it served the town. It definitely doesn't owe us a whole lot at this point, so,
All right, thanks, Mike.
yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, we should discuss favorable or unfavorable review. So, what's the choice of the commission? Nobody?
Well, I mean, right now with
I'll
the
start.
cost of infrastructure and the economy we're in, we have a building. And, you know, when things change, and then it's gonna be time to look forward to something different, but right now, this is what we have. It's an infrastructure.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. We've known about this for years, that it was coming, so,
Yep.
if,
And the high school does have the need for the building, I believe,
Correct. And that's-
ASAP.
the high school's more, yeah, that's
So,
the way it was when we were in high school, Mike.
Yeah, it's just like 40 years ago.
So, history repeats itself. But
They
this
run
time,
between the schools
Park
with
and
no
Rec
code.
is in need of a facility, and I say we move forward, because right now, to build new it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be hard to go, so.
okay, so,
You know, this all makes sense, and
Commissioner Dexter?
I would like to offer up a favorable referral for this temporary housing for Park and Rec at the Old Orchard Hill School.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to address our next item on our agenda, which is the CGS referral, Connecticut General Statute 8-24, the addition of the splash pad at Nevers Road Park. Good evening.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Molly Keyes, Director of Parks and Recreation.
John Caldwell, Superintendent of Parks.
So we are looking to add a fully inclusive water play space for our community. It is about a 3,000 square foot splash pad in Nevers Park in front of the Boundless Playground. We have looked into considerations for ADA, safety with fencing, shade structures, utility, and other aspects of the location. And that is the favorable spot, as it is a focal point with easy access for community members of all abilities.
Okay, does that complete your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Okay, I'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
I could just say that we did meet out on site with John and Molly, a couple staff members, looking at the location and whatnot, and they're preparing a site plan, because obviously we have hookups into the sewer system and water that needs to be coming, and electrical and those kinds of things. So there is a site plan will be under consideration, but
Okay,
we've talked about things like access and safety and fencing and things like that, so those are some things that are being incorporated.
this would tend to be more a children's activity. So I'm thinking, would it be located like near the Boundless Playground, or would there be parking to serve this that's away from like the ball field parking, where the older kids can be a little rougher and all that?
So splash pads are designed for, youth that are toddlers all the way up to about 12 or 13. I mean, after that, there's not really a lot that would entertain those ages. I mean, anyone of all ages are welcome, right? But it's typically designed for younger youth. So we have looked at placing it in front of the Boundless Playground and putting fencing all around that to make sure there's a barrier between the road and the splash pads, so youth would be contained in that space. In terms of parking, overflow parking, we have allocated over, it's hard to describe it without the site plan, but if you're looking at the community center / Boundless Playground from across the street of
The high school.
the high school.
I think the best way to look at it is where the farmer's market used to be. It's gonna be on the lower field, towards the right. Us older people know it as the Spilkas.
Excuse me, sir, can you introduce yourself, please?
John Caldwell, Superintendent of Parks, still.
But that is designed to be overflow parking if need be. Splash pads aren't things that you're not gonna have more than, 25, 30 people really at a time. You shouldn't. It's kind of one of those things that you flow through, and you're not staying there for more than maybe like an hour or so unless it's a really hot day. So we're not thinking that it's gonna be masses flooding and staying at the splash pad. Like, they might be there already to utilize the Boundless Playground, or they might already be there for a game, and they're gonna be just accessing it for multi-use.
So would you have it on like on hot nights, like into the evening?
Yeah, so we would be looking
Alright.
at consideration of hours depending on the
I'm
weather.
being selfish because I run there. Essentially, it'd be kind of a neat way to,
We did say that it could be a great space for an adult program as well, on the occasion, the special event, so.
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner Cavagnero?
Thank you. I do have two questions. First off, I know that these splash pads, they won't be running 24/7. Is there like a timetable of when they'll be running, like 9 to 5? Like, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not sure what time of the day they'll be
We don't have an
running.
exact time, but we're thinking of the areas between 10 to sunset. It won't go past sunset though, and everything is a touch. So you'll touch a button, it'll stay on for a certain amount of time, then it'll shut itself off.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't run water constantly.
Gotcha. I've seen one or two towns that have it run into the night and they like install lights. I wasn't sure if that's something you guys were going to be doing.
We are not planning that at this
Okay,
time.
just wanted to make sure. Last but not least, how long do you think it'll take to construct this and when it'll be ready?
Well, we've been talking to a couple different engineering and architects for some design and plans like Michelle had spoken of. We have to get that done. We'd like to, the contractor actually would be ready to go now, but we don't have plans for it designed yet. We want to make sure that we talk to the treatment plant and everybody in our engineering department, make sure everybody's on board. That's the meeting that we had the other day. We want to get our plans drawn up, make sure everything looks good, make sure that we can make the ADA compliance ramps and the sidewalks that go to everything. But we'd like to break ground in very early spring.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Foley?
I'm just curious, because it's a push-button activated system, there's no lifeguards, right, it's
No,
parental?
so legally, we don't have to have lifeguard.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Commissioner Dexter?
Just a couple little things. Now, this is the project that the Rotary is sponsoring, I'm guessing?
Correct.
They're covering the whole cost?
No, they're covering a portion of the cost.
Can you elaborate? Just curious.
Yep, so they donated a portion of the project, and we got additional funding from the Moms Club for, a couple benches or some additions there. And then we have additional funding from capital projects as well.
Okay, beautiful. Does the water recycle?
We had looked into a water recycling system, and that would be something that would be considered way down the road because it opens up a whole new kind of list of things that would need to be done.
Yeah, water's expensive.
It does not.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we look into it, the treatment of the water, it changes the whole aspect of a splash pad. Showers would have to be installed, bathrooms would have to be installed, lifeguards, hourly checks on the water, a filter building. It creates a huge expense to it, and it also a huge operating expense as it goes on throughout the years.
Okay, thank you.
I just had one question regarding the use. And I know a lot of people feel their pets are part of the family, but is this directed specifically for humans? And I know there's communities that have dog parks that have splash parks also.
Yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be for humans. I've seen some parks and rec departments that have special events, kind of like the doggy dips, but for the splash pad, and then we just would have our crew clean it. It's not favorable to have dogs going through the system. So we would be putting up, some signs to.
Appropriate signage.
Yeah, yeah, we would have signage for it. However, it's going to be hard to kind of say, no at all times.
Okay. Commissioner Bernstein?
For the millions of people watching at home who don't know, can you describe what a splash pad is?
Yes, so a splash pad is basically a flat surface that has a variety of interactive touch water toys. So it could have anything from a water table, ground sensors, so people can hit it, and it could be like a snake design, and water comes shooting out, tumble buckets, mini flowers that shoot out water. So just interactive kind of water play spaces.
Giant sprinklers,
So we become South Windsor Six Flags.
miniature size, though.
Miniature
Thank you.
size, yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions, comments, concerns? Generally, the commission wouldn't approve something like this without plans. It's a little bit of a leap of faith on our part, because it's something we don't.
You're actually just doing the referral.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank
If
you.
you want to approve the whole thing, that's okay.
Yeah, that's
No,
even better.
okay, good. Okay, so, and my apologies, it is a Connecticut General Statute approval, so, or referral. So, commissioners, what's your feelings? Commissioner Cavagnero?
I make a motion of referral 824 of the addition of splash pad in Evers Road Park for a favorable recommendation.
Okay, so a favorable review, do we have?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor of the referral, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, and now we will address the email that was received for the quad board. Got buried here somewhere. Let me see.
I think only the chairman has it, so don't look for it.
Oh, Kevin, did I? I gave it to you.
That's a mistake. My wife knows, don't give me this.
Okay. So, there was a communication sent out by the council clerk of the council, Amanda Poma. And the council is looking for 2 volunteers from each of the boards, planning and zoning being one. And they're asking us to forward 2 members from our board to be part of the quad board. This is something that I would be interested in participating in. I know Commissioner Foley has expressed interest about that. We're looking for 2 members. I'll open up the floor to see if anybody else has interest. Michael, maybe you want to step up to answer a question on this, but there was one question about how often this board is going to be meeting and at what times. Is it during the day? Is it the evening? Is it what night? Once a month? Twice a month? Any?
They're great questions that I don't have answers to. I have not heard what time, how often, or anything yet. I know we, during the quad board meeting, discussed actually getting back together like once a quarter for the quad board to get together. So I would expect that, probably we're going to get some kind of a committee meeting going prior to that. One of the big challenges we're faced with just internally as staff all the time is identifying a location that will work for the organization, for the group that's meeting, because we do have a lot of boards and committees meeting all the time. So just trying to find an open room is always a little bit challenging. So I don't know a whole lot beyond that at this point. I'm sorry. Commissioners,
is there any other input?
No, I mean, how can you commit? How can we give a couple names if we don't, if, let's say it's gonna meet during the day and I work, or it's a night where I have choir practice, or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that would be
I'm
helpful.
gonna guess, since it's a group that everybody's a volunteer and has a job for the most part, or does something else during the day, they're gonna have to meet at night. I can't see beyond, doing something in the middle of the afternoon or something. That doesn't make sense, so.
And it sounds like it's a quarterly meeting, so.
No, I think it would be more than quarterly. The whole big one was gonna be quarterly is kind of what they were
Okay.
thinking.
Commissioner LeBlanc?
Well, no, I'm interested in this. It just depends on the frequency of it, really. I mean, I have one of these jobs where, I'll be in New York City for the next 2 days. So that you run into things like that, but.
Well, if I'm understanding you correctly, the two participants could be meeting, say, monthly, and the full quad board could be meeting quarterly, and all the commissioners would be invited to that, correct?
Correct, and I think there was a hope that it would be quarterly. I can't say that that's actually gonna happen, but I think you're correct
Yeah.
in that. And I would also think that, once this committee gets together, and if they all sit down and, everybody says, look, I can only meet once a month, or I can only meet, every other week, I'm sure they're gonna hash that out somehow.
Okay. See, I find it interesting because, during the day, I mean, I know I've talked to you on the side before, but I mean, I'm basically an engineer. I've worked at transportation-oriented development. I've done all these different things like that, even working for the state. I retired back in April, but now I work for a company that develops real estate and things like that. I mean, I do have an input that may be of value. So I do find it interesting, and I would certainly would like to participate in this.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Alan?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I would be interested again if we had the times and everything, and I know that it's most likely going to be in the evenings, probably around 6, 7, 8 o'clock. It really just, depends. If I knew ahead of time, I would love to be involved within the smaller quad board that we were just mentioning. But no, that's essentially it. I would be interested if, again, we had the times and the dates set in front of us.
Okay. When do we need to get names in?
Could I maybe suggest, since there does seem to be a number of questions, maybe you send those questions back to Amanda, and she can discuss that with the mayor and whomever else, and they can maybe get you some answers, or
Okay, fair
some
enough.
better generalities than I can. So,
Okay,
yeah,
that sounds good. We'll do that, and,
because you have another meeting in like 2 weeks, right? So,
yeah, on the
3, but yeah, okay.
3
That's
because
not-
of election
Yeah.
day and all that, yeah. Okay,
It's not the end of the world.
okay. So we'll,
Just,
Commissioner Dexter?
just a thought, because there are several people who would like to volunteer, that you guys sometimes have conflicts, maybe there's an alternate.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. All right, so we'll decide at our next meeting, and it'll be on our agenda, right? Okay, thank you very much. So that completes our new business prior to our executive session. So we could use a motion to suspend our,
I move that we suspend the regular meeting and go into executive session, inviting town planner Michelle Leip to join us as well as our alternates.
okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
Chairman, you're ready whenever we're live. Good.
I move we resume the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, we have a motion to resume the meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. I have to appoint somebody. I apologize. Commissioner Vatiri, you're going to sit for Commissioner Foley. You what? Oh, it's a late night, huh? I'll look to this side, I'm sorry. Commissioner Carey, you'll sit for Commissioner Foley? Okay. And you're adding affirmative vote to come out of executive session? Okay, thank you. Okay, it was the consensus of the commission to direct the Director of Planning, Michelle Leip, to contact SLAM Collaborative and negotiate a proposal for the Plan of Conservation and Development and bring back that to the commission. And that'll be at a future meeting. So thank you, Michelle. Okay, resuming our normal meeting. We have bonds. We had, I believe, yeah. No, I got them. Does anybody want to make a motion on these bonds?
I'll take the motion.
Okay, Commissioner Cavagnaro.
IWA-CC bonds, we have 19-44P, Power Screen ENS, amount 5,000, a reduction 5,000, and a balance of 0.
We have motion. Do we have second?
Second.
We have motion and second. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Next bond we have, 19-29P, Aeromed ENS, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000, and a balance of 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Next one, 13-28P, Jehovah Witness Solar ENS, amount 1,000, reduction 1,000, balance 0.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes unanimously.
Last one we have, 19-16P, 241 Deming Street ENS, amount 5,000, reduction 5,000, and a balance of 0.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Commissioner Cavagnaro. Okay, we had minutes. I believe we had 2 sets of minutes. They looked good. We can adopt them by consensus if that is the commission's. Okay, I'm getting a lot of nods here, so we'll adopt those by consensus. Michelle, do we have any old business?
No, we do not.
Okay. If there's no other business to come before the commission, then a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I second.
We have a motion and a second, and, oh, there's no discussion on that. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.